Hello everyone, welcome back to Maverick Mods. Well, we're winding down the fab work on the Firebird. I'm running closer to running out of things that need to be fabricated prior to blowing the Firebird back apart for cleanup and paint. So this week, two main areas I'm going to focus on. One is to cover the openings in the wheel wells. If you guys will remember, when I fit the wheel wells after modifying the front suspension, I had to cut some fairly substantial openings in the factory inner wheel house, inner wheel liners, inner wheel wells, whatever you call them. But I had to cover those. So we're going to do that today. Also finishing up the EFI fuel tank install by doing the cover in the trunk area. So grab your popcorn, let's get started. Guys, I'm going out on a really shaky, thin, and otherwise, well, on a limb that's not very strong. I'm going to try something that I've never done before. I've got an English wheel, and I've got some filler panels to make for the wheel wells. I'm going to see if I can do this. Never done it before. I literally, until that showed up, I never even touched an English wheel before. So this might be fun, might be entertaining, it might be maddening, it might even work. So I've got my template started for the first portion of it, and I think I don't think there's any way I can do this in more than multiple segments. So I'm going to start off. As you can see, I've got a template set up here. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut my template here. I'm going to start and make this piece right here first, and then when I'm done, I will stitch weld all of the pieces together, and maybe the whole thing can come off as one. It's just going to have to be created in multiple pieces. Not because it probably could be done on an English wheel. I'm just not certain I can do it on an English wheel in one piece. So let me cut some metal and get everything set up and see step one here. All right, let's see if I can do this one-handed here. So we're looking inside the engine compartment here. Here's the frame horn. Here's the wheel well itself. My first piece is going to fit right here. Kind of just follow the outside edge of the frame horn itself. And I'm going to go on the English wheel now, and starting about right here, see if I can roll this whole piece over to kind of form that corner back in there. Wish me luck. First time ever to use this tool. Let's see how this works. Oh. All right, first thing I discovered is if it slides out, you got to start over with your tension. All right, it keeps wanting to walk this way, and I want it to go that way. I got to figure out how to make it do that. There we go. Okay, got it figured out. Okay, now I need to make a big curve over on this side of it. I'll keep this curve going. Well, I'll get the hang of this someday. Okay, now I also need to take this side and go this way with it. So, kind of put a curve this way in it. See if I can figure out how to do that. So here was my first pass, and what this told me was that it's interesting. It's kind of interesting. I think I need to move my beginning of my curve a little bit lower and just keep working this around, because I didn't quite get the complete curvature I was looking for over there. So let me keep working at it, and we'll try pass number 2. All right, so let's see how round, what is it, 2 or round 3 did. Well, it's actually looking to the point where I could probably almost screw it in place. It's pretty darn close. I'm by no stretch am I saying I can make this thing fit without having to massage it a little bit with a hammer. So I'm probably going to go ahead and bolt this in place, and both to the wheel well and to the frame rail, and get after it with the hammer and see if I can't kind of massage it a little bit better. But it didn't turn out terrible. I don't think it turned out great, but I think it turned out kind of okay. Let me go ahead and bolt this in place and see if I can't massage it with a hammer a little bit, and then see what happens. All right, guys, I hate to say this because I hate to admit defeat, but the English wheel is going to have to go back on the shelf for another day. I've spent the last, I don't know, week, maybe more, trying to get what I picture in my head that I want these covers to be, and I just flat, I don't have enough skill yet on an English wheel, because like I said, that's the first time I've ever actually used one. It's going to take some time to learn that. I did learn a few things with it, and a few things turned out okay, but this is more than, it would take me 6 months of just playing with that thing to get these the way I want them. So we're going back old school. I'm just going to do some sheet metal. We're going to make some folds. We're going to make some strategic stitch welds, and I'm just going to go with kind of more of an angular look on the covers. So I've got my first template made. I need to kind of section this a little bit more and then make some cuts. I'll get some sheet metal made, and we'll come back and look at this. I transferred the patterns, the cardboard patterns I made, over to a couple of pieces of sheet metal. I figured out that rather than try and bend the sheet metal itself with the flaps or the flanges or whatever, because there had to be a curve on this piece right here, made it kind of difficult. So I just basically made each individual piece separately, and I'll stitch weld them together along the seams. So here's the top piece. I'll continue working down both sides. I might be able to use one of the pieces I made on the English wheel, but I might not. We'll check in again with the next little bit of progress on the wheel well covers. Progress update on the wheel well cover panels, I guess you could call it. It's not quite the way I envisioned it. It's more industrial and functional than it is aesthetically pleasing at the moment. I got a lot of welds to clean up. Actually, I've got a lot of welds to finish, to perimeter or stitch weld everything. Clean the welds up and get this cleaned up a little bit. I think it'll look better. Like I said, it's definitely raw right now, but you know, I just wish I had the time and the skill on the English wheel to just do a little bit better job with that. But in the end, it's going to accomplish what I intend for it to accomplish, and that is seal the wheel wells, keep spray and everything from getting all over the engine compartment. That's the primary purpose. If I can make it look a little bit less like an industrial boiler, then more is the better. But like I said, still a lot of cleanup to do. We'll come back and take a look at this when I've got the cleanup done and see how it looks. All right, progress update. I've got the first cover complete. Well, it's complete. It's welded and it's ground. It's not quite complete yet, but basically the idea is, I know it looks kind of, well, It looks kind of weird. The idea is it's going to slide over the control arm mount and then bolt around the perimeter of the wheel well itself. And all this is for is just to keep water from splashing up into the engine compartment. And I've got a few areas yet that I need to do a little bit of cleanup on. I'm still kind of trying to figure out, I think a little grinding is not going to clean those out, but I think a little grinding, a little Bondo to make a fillet there might actually work and look a little bit better. So the idea is I'm just going to put a few screws in here so you can see. I've only got a few screws in there, but this is just to give you an idea. Essentially, all it's doing is just covering up the gap. And like I said, I really wanted to use the English wheel and make these a little bit more kind of curvy, but in the end, I guess form, or I guess that'd be function over form, I guess in this case. So this side is ground, and I've still got a little bit of cleanup yet to do, actually a lot of cleanup yet to do. The driver's side is sitting on the welding table. I've got all the welding done. I haven't got the grinding done yet. So let's revisit this when I do. Maybe I'll throw just a quick cheap coat or coated sheet primer on there, just so you guys can kind of get a little bit better visual idea of the finished product. All right, well, here they are. Like I said, I did put a coat of cheap hardware store primer on them, just so you can see them a little bit better, that's all. That'll wind up being sandblasted off. I'll epoxy prime them. I am going to kind of continue working on these welds a little bit, grind them down, and probably do a little Bondo just to make some fillets along there, just to make them look a little prettier. Although most of this, except for right up here, you're not really going to see a whole lot of it, because there's going to be, brake booster, brake components are back here, ABS modules here. I forget what's here. It's like the cruise control module here, and things are, there's a whole bunch of stuff going to be here. Over on this side, same thing. Like I said, back here, all the air conditioning setup is back here. Up here, we're going to have battery. We're going to have more components here. So in the grand scheme of things, a lot of it is not going to be seen, but I still want to make it look, at least presentable. So we're going to call these like I said before on a few other things, they're done for now, with a little bit more cleanup and a little bit more work yet to go. I'm in the process of making the cover for the fuel pump extension on the fuel tank. And as an engineer, you always think that we're coming up with the best, easiest, most elegant solutions. No. If there's a way to Rube Goldberg something because it's cool and it's a gadget and you can have 40 million parts instead of 3, that kind of is where I lean sometimes. I have to really fight myself to do that. Or I have to fight myself when I do that. So my first thought was, of course, I have to put a cover on top of the fuel pump sending unit. And that cover is going to have to bolt to the trunk floor. And it needs to be airtight or vapor tight, because the firewall, if you want to call it, between the trunk and the cabin itself, it's not airtight at all. I mean, it passes right through because there's great big gaping holes back there. So I do need to seal the trunk from the vapors that could come up through it. Of course, the first thing I thought was, well, I've got these strengthening ribs, and how am I going to work around that without cutting more of the trunk floor away? And then I thought, well, okay, but I probably need to, to beef up the trunk floor a little bit, because I probably cut some of the strength out of it when I cut that hole. Then I thought, all right, well, how about if I make a flange and then secure the flange to the trunk floor? That'll give it its strength, and then I can make the top, and that'll go on top of it. And so I even went so far as to cut myself some, now this is out of 16 gauge, I went so far as to cut myself some strip that could act as the flange. But now I have a problem, because these ribs here, how do I seal the flange to the trunk floor without perimeter welding everything? And that's a lot of welding. Plus I need to go up here as well in order to get the entire opening so that I can have just a seamless kind of cover. Then I thought, okay, you're overcomplicating things again. So instead of having multiple pieces in a solid cover, I thought, what do I really what am I trying to accomplish here? What I'm trying to accomplish is, number one, to cover this. Number two, I want to be able to access this, not anything around it. I want to access the fuel pump itself, and that's it. So then I thought, all right, is there a simpler way to do that? Usually when I say that, it's after I've already jumped in with both feet. This time I didn't. So we're going to take my little pieces that I cut, and we're going to gently set them off to the side. And you're going to watch me come up with the solution I think is going to work better and easier. So instead of doing it the hard way, I decided to do it the easy way. Okay. All right, so the plan is cut myself some templates. I'm going to just build up the sides. I'm going to perimeter weld each one of these pieces. A little bit of an angle here, a little bit of an angle there, just to kind of take make the top a little bit smaller. Angle it this way. I will bend a couple of flanges on the tops here and bend this over so I've got a flange that's going to come all the way around. And then I'm just going to have a top that's going to bolt down, and it'll obviously have gasket. It'll be gasketed, sealed. I think that's going to be an easier and as elegant, or even a more elegant situation or solution to making the cover for the fuel pump. So let me go cut some metal and see if this works. I've got my sheet metal cut, kind of taped in place right now. It's a little bit wonky right now. Once I get a few tacks in place, I'll drop the tank and finish cutting the opening out from underneath, and then I'll work on getting the top piece on. Okay, she's tacked in. Now I need to go underneath and cut out the rest of the sheet metal. When I cut up here, I know it looks a little off center. It's actually not. It's because there's a little bit of a jog here in the trunk floor, and I actually did check, make sure that we're level across here and across here. So when I cut up here, I'll need to make sure that A, I get it level, but B, I also leave myself enough of a tab that I can fold up and complete the back side of that ledge there where the top is going to sit. Now we're going to try and bend our sheet metal here to make some tabs. Use my favorite sheet metal manipulation tool here. We're going to start there. Just work it at my line. Just work it up. Okay, I cut some slots and relief slots in here because this is not exactly a straight edge here. So hopefully that'll help it kind of make the bend without wrinkling. All right, that's pretty close. Let me get a straight edge and see. I'll have to get underneath to check it to make sure, but I think I'm pretty well set. What I need to do now is just go underneath, probably with a hammer and dolly, to kind of finish that off, and then I can tack my corners and my relief slots, and that'll pretty much lock this shape in. Then I can build the cover. I've got my corners welded, ground, not final ground, but it's close enough that I can start working on the top. I'm gonna take my top. This is out of 16 gauge. The rest of it is 19 gauge. So I'm gonna line it up on my outer edge here. And I've already taken, I'm basically tracing this little back end here so I can trim that to slide all the way back. Let me trim this real quick. I'll go for round two. All right, so I'm lined up on this edge. I'm closer there. I got a little bit more to do, but now I can take my marker along the bottom edge and trim my piece, and it'll take a little bit more trimming, but I'll have a top here very shortly. I've got my top plate cover finished, trimmed up, feels good, fits. All right, so what I need to do now is I'm gonna drill a series of holes along the perimeter all the way around, and that will be for sheet metal screws that will screw into the flange here. I've got the holes drilled in my top cover. Now it's just a matter of putting the screws in. I'm using self-tappers. It's just as easy. I'm kind of moving around a little bit. Top's on. Of course, I'm still gonna have to perimeter weld everything, but you know what? I'm gonna wait on that until the car is back on the rotisserie. That way I'm not leaning over into the trunk, which is hard on my old back. So I'm gonna call this done for now. Well, that's gonna do it for this week, guys. We've got the covers for the wheel well openings mostly finished. We've got the cover for the EFI fuel pump mostly finished, but for all intents and purposes, the fab work on the Firebird here is winding down to the point where I'm running out of excuses not to just take it apart and start cleaning everything, prepping it for paint. So now some of you guys probably have noticed that the Firebird content, maybe it's changing or maybe it's tapering off a little bit. There's a reason for that. The next time you see the Firebird, it's probably going to be disassembled, not quite down to its component molecules, but it's going to be disassembled back down to the bare shell, and it's going to be back on the rotisserie. The reason for that, obviously, is there's a lot of cleanup. I've got a lot of welds to clean up. I've got a ton of old factory screw holes and whatnot to fill. I've got some holes that I created that need to be filled in the shell. Once that's done, then we need to hit it with the sandblaster, clean up a few areas, and basically prep it for paint. And that just takes time. And a lot of that is, well, I mean, in my opinion, is kind of boring content where you just sit there and watch me weld for, well, it's probably going to take 4 or 5 days to get all the welding done. that alone. For the next several weeks, I'm going to have a lot of work that really, well, frankly, be kind of boring for you guys. So stick with me. The Firebird will come back with a vengeance when the time comes, and you will see segments on the Firebird, progress updates, etc., in the process of me getting everything cleaned up and prepped and painted. But for the next few weeks, you might see some non-Firebird content. Don't panic. You might even like something a little bit different, you know. I spent the vast majority of my automotive background, if you want to call it a background, doing mostly mechanical work, and I've got a few clips that are coming up of doing mechanical work, actually working on cars. The fabrication and the body and paint thing came much later in my automotive life. So it's kind of nice once in a while to kind of get back to my roots. But there is going to be that pause in the continual, constant Firebird content. It probably for the next, I'm guessing 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month. Depends on how long it takes me. Certainly appreciate everybody watching. Big thanks to all you guys for tuning in every week. If you like this video, maybe subscribe. Maybe like it. You know, do the thumbs up thing. Maybe share it. Maybe, what's the other one? Notification? I don't know. At any rate, thanks again. See you guys next week. Everybody, have a great day.